Welcome back to the Back to Basics series. I'm Brandon from Tattooing 101. And today we're going over week 2 for the color tattoo tutorial series. And last week we went over all the basics of all the tools that you need in order to do a color tattoo effectively. So you haven't seen that video, I recommend going back and checking that out. I'll leave a link in the description below for that video. Also, if you are enjoying these videos, I highly recommend checking out our email list. With that, you'll receive free resources in order to level up your tattooing game. So in today's week 2 video, we're going to go over color packing and blending. To start out, I have all my tools that I'm going to use. I'm going to be using a standard 15 curve mag, which is 12 gauge, my Bishop wand packer with my critical battery pack, and this is what I'm going to be using for the actual tattoo. So for the colors I'm going to be using solid ink Dulce de Leche.
Dulce de leche.
I probably pronounced that wrong, but it's right there for you to be able to see. Solid Inks Diablo, Fusion's Foundation Flesh, and Solid Ink El Dorado. So for today's drill, I've already prepared and lined out this mushroom. I have a little bit of shading in it, so I'm able to show you the different techniques that I use in order to solid fill and also shade in color. And this is a design I'm going to be able to show you exactly how to do both. So the goal for today's video is how to pack color as well to make smooth blends and transitions. So first we're going to start out with color packing. We'll start out with the red on top. So whenever you are packing in color, you want to think about it like you're packing in solid black. You're doing little ovals, and instead of having your mags perfectly straight, aligned, you want to turn them a little bit at an angle so they kind of match up. So where my shading starts right here, I'm going to go back and start packing in my red. We're just making sure that I'm going up to the lines and going around all of the areas. So this 15 curve mag, you could see if I'm turning it on an angle, I could get into these hard to reach areas very effectively. And we're just going through and saturating everything with the color. The biggest thing you want to think about when you're working with color is you want to go from dark to light. So you never want to go with a dark color like red after you're done with doing yellow, or it'll completely muddy up your colors and it won't come out looking right. So always start from your darkest colors and work lighter. So you can see right here, I'm just going through packing in my color, keeping my hand speed consistent the whole time and working with my ovals going through. I'm running at about a 7.5 when I'm doing this. Then we could stop about right here, because this is where we're going to start to transition and make blends. So this section we're just going to completely saturate on the other side as well with the same technique. So you can see I'm holding my mag at an angle to get into these hard to reach areas. You're not really able to do this with standard mags, so with no curve, or it'll completely slice the skin. So that's why I really liked curve mags, because I'm able to use them in a ton of different ways that make it more effortless whenever I am actually tattooing. So working on a design like this will help you kind of understand where your sharps are at all times, because you have to go around all these little ovals, which will help you kind of build up the confidence using your mag, which could be one of the hardest things whenever you are first starting out with color packing, is just understanding where all of your sharps are inside of the cartridge. So you can see here where my black shading was, the darker color was able to go over top of that, and it kind of blended in with that black. And just like all the techniques we learned in the last video series with shading, that's pretty much the technique we're using right here to be able to get that transition into the colors you can see here. When packing color, the trick is to move at a slight oval shape, and also have your mags slanted a little bit so they match up, so it'll saturate a whole lot easier going through with the tattoo. So you want to make sure you're keeping your movement compact and also keeping the same hand speed throughout the whole tattoo when you're packing, or it'll cause inconsistencies or holidays in your tattoo packing. So now we'll go into the bottom right here. The biggest thing to look out for whenever you are packing in solid color is if you go too fast and have holidays in your design. So first thing we want to do is clean out our cartridge because we're going into a different color. So we want to make sure there's no residual red in this cartridge or it'll completely blend into the colors that we're using. So cleaned out my cartridge, dipping into my brown. And going through here, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you're going too light. So if I start out and my hand speed is nice and consistent, but then it's sporadic and I'm going too fast, what's going to happen is holidays. So you can see all the little areas right here where it's not saturated. So what you need to do is go through at a constant speed the whole time to get it all nice and saturated. So these little oval shapes like I'm doing right here, turning my mag, are what's going to help that effect. So as you can see here to the right is nice and saturated, and to the left it was sporadic. You can see the difference here. Now if you do have an area that's a little bit light, all you have to do is go into a different angle. So do some cross hatching to where I went this way the first time, going this way, same technique, and just completely saturate it in that way to make it nice and saturated. Now many beginners make this mistake when they are actually learning to color pack because they're not keeping their hand speed consistent. So understanding these things when you're actually practicing will help you better your tattooing and the outcome of your tattoo as well. Another thing I've noticed people learning to pack do that's a mistake is if you're going into packing a solid area and you're going this way with your mags, you can see that all of the liners inside the mag, or your sharps, are lining up. So it's going to create a slice in the skin. So anytime I go through, you could see that my mag is at an angle. I never line them up like this and go this way. So even if I'm going into a hard to reach area like this, I'll move my mag to the side and just be able to use the tip of the needles instead of all of them going in one kind of area. With that being said, what are some other mistakes that you see yourself struggling with when it comes to these subjects? Let me know in the comments so I can check them out and help you out any way I can. So now that I've packed the color in, I'm going to show you 2 ways on being able to transition the colors into skin tone. To start out, I'm going to go with the traditional style, which is whip shading. So just whipping the color into skin tone. I'll do this on the bottom section right here. So to build out a smooth transition, the thing with blending using traditional style is that you would see the mag marks as it tapers into the skin tone. So when you're doing it, you're putting your sharps into the skin, speeding up your hand speed, and lifting up in this motion right like this. Not all styles are going to suit this look where you want to see the needle marks, but when it comes to traditional, this is what you want to see. So now we could go through and finishing up the bottom. This is the motion that you want to get used to right here. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get at doing this kind of motion. It is a little bit awkward when you first start out, but the more you do it, it'll just become like second nature. So I'm starting out at consistent hand speed, speeding up and lifting out of the skin the further away I go. What that's going to do is the needle marks are going to be more spread out and not into the skin as deep, and it's going to make a transition to where you could see the needle markings going out. So just focus on this motion right here. And if you want to make it a little bit darker and more saturated, all you have to do is go over it using the same motion, and it'll make it more saturated. So depending on how many times you go over it is going to be how dark or how saturated the area is. Now we can work on that same process in this section right here. So starting at the top, now we want the tip a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is take my cartridge, I'm not going to clean it out, I'm just going to dip it into my foundation flesh and you can see it's mixing in the tube right here. So I'm going to have a lighter color, as you can see here, from it just mixing inside of the tube. So now I could just go down and continue whip shading this part out. And you can see it made a different tone completely in that area. So now let's go into blending out the colors smoothly. So the things you could do with this is using a bug pin cartridge, or also using different colors to help blend into the skin tone. So I'm going to stay with a standard because they are easier to use than a bug pin. And I'm going to start out where this black is with my brown. So I want to get a little bit of a transition from this black into the brown underneath here. So instead of a whip shading motion, I'm going more with pendulum shading, building up my toes, pretty much the same techniques we've learned with shading. And going through with blending out the black into the brown. So now, what we could do is clean out our cartridge into our distilled water, making sure there's no residual ink left in the cartridge. Now we're going to dip into our yellow. So we're going to blend this black into the brown into yellow at the bottom. So I'm going to go back and forth. You can see I'm going into my brown a little bit because I want it to blend in smoothly. And we're not wanting to see those mag marks. So what I'm going to do to help eliminate them is do some cross hatching. So you can see I'm going one way and then I'm turning my mag and going a completely different direction. So I went this way, now I'm going this way. That's going to help hide the needle marks because they're not going to go all one single direction and make for a smoother transition going forward. You can see how smooth that blends in together with building up the different tones this way. Biggest focus here is just getting those colors to transition out into the skin tone without them being a hard stop, and also without seeding the needle marks like they are in this traditional shading right here. So now we could go forth and finish off the design. For right here, we want to leave more skin tone on top because it's going to be a lighter area. So I'm just starting out at the bottom. I'm just working my mag back and forth to build up the tones in the skin. You can see here that my mag's going this way, so I'm only using the tip of my needles. I'm not holding it straight up and down. Now we could just go over and do some cross hatching to smooth it out. Right here I'm not really pressing, I'm just very lightly brushing over it so the stroke marks don't line up perfectly. So you can see here, this is way more smooth of a blend than down here. It's just a different technique of putting into the color will give it this different look. Now we could go on to how to blend colors smoothly into the skin. My favorite way, and this is the way that I do neo-traditional. So we're starting out from our red where we had this cutoff section. And I'm going to start my transition with my pendulum shading. I just don't want to have that hard stop there, so I'm just working it back and forth to get more of a smooth blend going into the skin tone. As you can see here. Now I'll just do this to the other side. Doing some cross hatching. The smoother we get these layers, the smoother the outcome will be. So we're just really being light on the skin. We're not trying to press super hard. We just want to be as light as possible to be able to get these transitions smooth. So now what we'll do is dip into our foundation flesh, which is going to mix into the tube and make a lighter color. So we're going in over top of the color that we just did and using the foundation flesh to blend into the skin tone. So that's why we use a flesh tone, because skin isn't as white ink. So we're using a flesh tone so it actually blends in smoother into the skin tone underneath. And they make different flesh tones as well. If you're working on, a darker skin type or a lighter skin type, you could get the flesh tones to be able to match up perfectly, to be able to blend them in and it look way smoother on the skin. So now we have a lighter color. So now what we can do is clean out our cartridge completely in our distilled water, then go into the foundation flesh, which is a really light color, and then we could just work over top of it again. And this is what will blend in perfectly to the skin tone underneath. So we're not trying to pack this, we're just lightly blending everything in. So gradually, I'll just do this same process until I get the blend seamlessly into the skin tone. With transitions, some of you might be thinking, why can't I just dilute my ink with water to make a lighter shade? The reason you don't do this is because it's just not going to work. It's just going to leave your colors super diluted and it'll come out really patchy and there'll be holidays all through it. That's why you don't dilute it, but you use a skin tone to help give the effect that it's going perfectly into the color of the skin underneath, right like that. Now the biggest thing you want to think about whenever you're working with color is that you never want to do dark colors after light, like I just did here. So you could see these top areas right here where I did it next to the red, it made them more of a brown color than this really bright yellow. So this is what happens whenever you're doing your colors in the wrong steps. It'll end up diluting the colors because the pores open up and will actually muddy up the colors, so when they heal they won't be as bright as they possibly could be. So if you're to do this tattoo, make sure you're starting out with your blacks, your browns, then go into your reds. Then I would go into my lighter areas right here, then the yellow last, because yellow is really tricky to work with. If you put it into an actual live client, the blood and plasma comes to the surface and makes it really, really hard to see where you put in the yellow, which makes you think it didn't go in the first place, which could be really confusing. So those are a couple things to keep in mind whenever you are working with color when it comes to tattooing, and what to look out for when you are practicing. So that was 2 ways of how I blend my colors and how to do it effectively. To recap, the biggest takeaways are going to be the hand motions that you're using in order to make your blends, and also the tight ovals when you're packing your color and keeping your hand speed consistent. So whenever you are approaching shading, you can do it in 2 different techniques. So this is something you want to understand the style that you're going to do before actually doing the tattoo, so you could understand what technique you need for the tattoo to have the best outcome. And I'll see you for week 3, where we'll be going into how to layer your colors. So make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can be updated whenever I come out with the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.